Welcome to Empowerment TV and the Empowerment Podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest. His name is Don Wisniewski. He is an entrepreneur, a friend, a mentor, and a conscious leader, just an incredible man. We talk about all sorts of things, including how to track information in your company, metrics, and how to lead with integrity. He has owned several businesses. He started in 2002, sold businesses, and still runs a very successful business. He has been successful not in business, but also in life, in creating a real conscious life in the way he lives. Please welcome Don Wisniewski. Awesome.
Hi, Don. Good to see
you. Good to see you too. It's kind of fun to see you on a Monday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thursday of great. Yeah. Well, let's jump right in.
Sure.
One of the things that I have learned a lot from you is about leadership and just in life and in running your company. So I'd love to start a little bit about your thoughts about leadership, and then I want to dive into some other things that I think would be really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, leadership kind of entails integrity, being authentic, and I'd also say in business, having optics and measurements so you can understand your progress. Because I think often, there's a charismatic leader who can motivate you, and that's exciting. It's always great to have people around like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, where's the follow-up? Where's the detail that allows you to continue to progress and frankly get better in a personal development way or in your business. And that's where, as you know this, I lean heavily into metrics and optics and KPIs, they're called, and tools like that allow it to be more objective. So we know we're making progress, and then we can course correct and continue to make progress. So it becomes more scalable, becomes more repeatable, right? So that's my initial thoughts on leadership.
I remember you said something a while ago about, even the A players who are your rock stars in the company, it's still beneficial to have those benchmarks and those, like you said, things to follow the objective aspects for growth. Do you have any examples of that or describe that a little further?
Well, I think, there's the life cycle of a company. And I think a company starts with 2 people, 20 people, or 100 people, and ultimately it's going to grow. And that's the intention, right? To grow it profitably, of course, and be a responsible kind of manager, if you will, of the business. What happens is A players come in early, and some of them are really skilled at doing 25 things pretty well and starting a small company to move forward. Then you find, okay, well, great contributor, but can he or she move into a role that can fit more of a larger or the second stage, infancy or toddler or second stage of a company? Chances are they can, but you have to be clear on what you want from them. And I think that's where the leadership tends to, we move away from being an operator and more into an owner operator, and that role has to be taken. The owner role has to be taken very seriously, where you sit down and you lay out these objectives. I work a lot with a gentleman named Keith Cunningham.
Yes.
If you're familiar with his work, you'll probably pick up a couple of my terms and as
Yeah.
I describe them. So dashboards and scorecards. And these are optics and KPIs that allow us to lay these things out for an A player who is just an incredible contributor, great guy or gal. But if you don't lay out what you want and the time frame you want it and make sure they have the resources to get it, they're not going to perform well. And A players, the other part about A players, they love to be measured. They love to win. If you give them of course you got to pay for that, but that's okay. It's worth it if you guys are sitting on the same side of the table and you're going for the same objective. Um, it can be very, very shifting and just massively impactful to your company when they're focused on the right optics and the right deliverables over time. The companies can move really, really quickly. So I'd get challenged by them. They're going to challenge you. I've got three and a wannabe in my company, and they challenge me all the time. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that,
Yeah.
but I also get annoyed at times. But that's okay.
Sometimes the challenge is good, and sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
I thought we had it going smoothly. I thought everybody was happy. Um, can you give an example of something that would be on your dashboard or somebody's dashboard and scorecard, just to give a little more context to people who maybe aren't as familiar with that type of thing?
Absolutely. I think the fundamentals of a business are the P&L and the balance sheet, right? So it's okay if you're running a cash business. Most startups do. I ran cash business for years and years and years, and I kept saying it's the most accurate way I could run a business because it's actual cash, right? Well, the problem with that is you're making decisions on a revenue stream or cash position that continually fluctuates, that has no direct correlation to your management activities for that time frame, or say call it 1 month. So when you start to look at more of an accrual basis, now you can start to look at a P&L and a balance sheet, and you say, well, my balance sheet is in balance. My P&L, my expenses and my revenues I'm making money every month. I don't see it in cash, but I see it I see it on the P&L. And I think that's important because you're understanding your decisions that you're making each 30 days, or I would say at least 30. If you have to do quarterly, that's okay too, but do an accrual for your business every 30 days, get in practice of that, because then if you make a decision during that month, you get to see its effect. So dashboards and scorecards, I think, are rooted in the financials. That doesn't mean, I share profit with my sales guys or my developers. I have a software company, as you know. But what I do is I look at the P&L every single month, and I understand these 5 things we decided to do, which are on people's scorecards, like increased sales or increased gross profit margin or increased efficiency for the operation guys. Those would be 3 big metrics I put into my directors' dashboards. We measure them weekly and we report on them monthly. And if those numbers are going in the right direction, I should see the equivalent effect on my profit. And if I'm not seeing the correlation, then I could have the wrong metric, or I could not be measuring it properly, or at least there's a place to start to look at what really is affecting my profitability in my business. But that's the fun part of being, I say that part of leadership and being responsible leader of your company is you start to correlate these P&Ls and your profitability and your cash flow to the decisions and these dashboards and these. One of our big units of measure is it's the efficiency. It's the hours billed versus the hours paid. And then if that efficiency is high, I can see it on a bottom line. I can see the profitability go up in the company. So there's a direct correlation there. So I've got everybody in the company looking at efficiencies to the point of, Don, we can't do this. It's not efficient. And they'll sacrifice, the efficiency, the growth, or the, if you will, the overhead that we need to manage more because they want to be efficient. They don't want to lose any hour. But everybody is looking at that same metric, that same KPI. And I call it an optic. That optic drives a lot of our decisions. And we consciously have conversations around, well, efficiency is going to go down, but that's going to allow us to do these four other things. And we're going to catch up with more revenue or more profit, net profit dollars, but it's okay to sacrifice efficiency. We wouldn't have that conversation if we weren't tracking these types of metrics in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I'd say about optics and measurements in your business is only you got to try. You just start with something, and start measuring it every week if you can, definitely every month, and start tracking these things. Just pick 5, see which ones make sense to you, and then see if you can get start to draw your correlations, because there's all kinds of different product businesses, of course. I'm in the service business. Depending on the type of business you have, you're going to find different metrics. And if you just Google it, you can find some KPIs that you can instill into your culture and into your business. But just start watching it and start tracking it, because it takes so much of the emotional piece of out of the management, and that's where you ask any CEO, what does he love about the business? What does he hate about the business? He loves the people, but he hates working with the people. And it just, the more people I have, the more drama you have in the business. And it's rewarding in a lot of ways, but it's also very taxing. If you can you remove yourself from the emotional side and get very clear on what the facts are. I have conversations with my directors all the time that are focused on this decision had this result. I have no opinion if it was a good or bad decision until we look at the data.
Right.
And then we look at the data and we can see, well, it didn't quite work out right. And so we change and we shift and through an iterative process, we get better.
Mm-hmm.
So it works. It really works.
Yeah. And it keeps people on the same page as well. Like you said, they're like, we can't do that. It's not efficient. Or, or if we do this, then we can do that. But I like the remove the emotion. That's something I've had to work on. As you know, you've helped me step back, and especially when I was selling my business. And I am so grateful for those P&Ls. And I track like crazy on those too. And I think it really helped in the end with the sale also, because I understood it. So that was really good. But I like the people knowing what they need to do, but also getting on the same page of an understanding of what the expectations are.
It becomes coaching and mentoring.
Yes.
Because you see the problem, and then you got to ask yourself, are you communicating it properly? And a lot of times, I recognize that I didn't properly communicate what the objective was. But when I do, I get to coach very objectively and help somebody not emotionally see where they're blind. We all have blind spots. We all, it's inevitable, and it's just yours are different than mine. And my managers, they all have a different set of blind spots. They don't see that. I point it out and they ignore it. They keep moving until you kind of get a pattern of coaching and mentoring around it. And when you remove the emotional piece and you look at the data, it becomes a lot more apparent for your managers when they can just see the results, see the facts, if you will.
One of the things we've talked about is a Keith Cunningham thing. You mentioned him earlier about the apology. And right, we've talked about that before. And certainly I can say I've gone back to the staff and said, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't think I explained this quite right. Let's review this. Or, my intention was different than what came out of the conversation, or whatever the case may be. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I know we've had those conversations.
I think that we all make mistakes, and sometimes you make big mistakes, which I have. So,
But
so
that's
yes,
part of business.
yeah, right. So I can speak to this point. And one of the things I was doing for years was just overpaying certain people in the business because, well, bluntly, there were sales guys. My sales guys were a couple of them, and also one of my business partners.
Mhm.
And I just liked them. And the sales guys were really good at selling me and how good they are. So that happened. And then I'm all of a
That worked
sudden,
well.
they they
Watch who
did,
you hire for
yeah,
sales.
yeah. So I applauded them for that. And when the business was doing extremely well, I just kind of ignored it. And that's on me. That's where I start to think about how authentic and am I operating this business with integrity?
Mhm.
And it really slowed me down uh, to started me thinking. And Keith Cunningham's got this idea of thinking time. And I journal and I think all the time. And I purposely write down these questions that now and I try to answer them. And in this case is, am I doing the business a disservice through my inability to enforce the standards that are needed for this business to be successful?
Mhm.
Uh, that was a heavy one for me to really start to digest because it moved from a hobby to a business about 15 years ago. And I always prided myself. And if you look at the numbers, you'd say, wow, he's doing great. That I was a good business leader. But the real questions came only about, within the last 2 years that I really I'm not driving this business on the numbers and with integrity and intention to have the business get better for the better of the business. I'm
Mhm.
not saying be, callous and irrational or removed from your business. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying it's kind of a maturity for me now is to move into a level that you take the metrics of your business very seriously as the drivers, and if you do your dashboards and scorecards properly, you can see that it's improving or not improving the business. And then there's this idea called a talent map of each person and each role in the business. And if you look at that talent map, is he really or she really the right person to deliver those scorecards and dashboards? And then it just changes the game. It's been such a, the last probably 7 years for me. I thought a lot about these things. And again, the last 4 years, I really asked myself that tough question.
Mhm.
So I had to go back. I had to go back and do an apology. But I did it with, of course, authenticity and full integrity. But I raised the standards and I let them know what the standards were from now on, and we won't violate them anymore. Unfortunately, it means massive adjustment to their compensation plans, and frankly, it drove one of my partners out of the business, just because there wasn't the value that he was trying to extract from the business on a monthly basis. He wasn't adding that equivalent value. So we share in profits in other ways now, but it's not a matter of. But now it's cleaner and clearer, and that apology is critical to that. But also, right behind it, mention and or raise the standards, or be at least be clear on what the new standards are, especially if you intend to keep those people in the business with you. And then you're off to the races again, and then you're coaching and mentoring, and we're all looking at the same problems the same way. We have different solution ideas, right? That's a lot of fun. But then you're mentoring the guys and gals and trying to get them to move in direction that increases your profitability of your business. And if profitability is not your goal, it's the revenue. But another part of leadership is be clear on what the goal is for the team each
Mhm.
quarter, definitely each year.
Mhm.
And then we're all rallying behind it. So Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good one.
Oh, I love that one because
Yeah.
it's sometimes hard to look back as a leader and just look back to where you could do better. Um, I mean, you and I are into personal growth and
Mhm.
always doing our best to grow, but like you said, there's blind spots and there's things that maybe we don't catch on to right away. And those metrics are really helpful to understand. So I want to dive into something else, which
Okay.
is the psychology of running a business.
Okay.
And, I know you've had to pivot a few times, and
Mhm.
there have been some big pivots due to a lot of different reasons,
Mhm.
which uh, just took a lot of fortitude, but also just the psychology of how you got through some of those tough times and those big changes. Is there anything that comes to mind that has been helpful or important for you to move through that in terms of just how you thought about things?
Um, yeah, absolutely. One of so there's two kinds of pivots in my mind. One is you're kind of well, you can't, it's not even really a small company problem. So let's just say your revenue stream is drying up. And that's a hello, that's a you better figure out how to pivot or figure out what you need to do to get that revenue stream back intact, at least stable, if not
Mhm.
growing. Um, so I was going to say that's usually a smaller company problem, but it's a bigger company problem too. It just takes sometimes it takes months and even years to see the effect of drying up revenue streams, right? And there's evidence all kinds of stories when you look at different sized businesses. I think the telling sign is be if I just go back, my 30 years and 35 years in business now,
Yeah.
there's always it you have to look at that revenue stream and that client profile, what shifted there. And I'm just now working, well, just finishing working through some global issues that have changed that affected my business pretty dramatically, and we pivoted very, as you say, kind of effectively and quickly, and secured all our clients, even though we were, doing work in certain parts of the world which were suspect or concerning for our clients. But as soon as my natural instinct was protect the revenue stream, make sure your clients, B2B clients, consumers, are still okay with who you are and what you're providing. So
Mhm.
that was the I guess the first thought came to my mind was, how do I protect this revenue stream?
Mhm.
And again, we kind of repositioned the whole company. We rebranded. We did all kinds of interesting things
Mhm.
very quickly, very aggressively, and got and secured those clients. And I go back in my history, and there's literally several times the revenue stream just almost stopped, especially in consumer goods. It can just go away really quickly. And it's kind of an optic to tell you, are you really identifying and marketing and selling properly to that target,
Mhm.
B2B or B2C? And if you're tracking it, you'll see declines from an economic standpoint, or just because there's certain things going on in the world. But then you can see some dramatic shifts because you've done something, or you had a misinterpretation of what that client and who that client was, and you need to pivot very, very quickly. And what helps you through that is, again, track your revenue very closely. It's not the only measurement. Profitability, in my mind, is cash is king, is what we say. And
Yes.
because on cash, you don't have an opportunity to build a P&L. It's more of a accrual base. But watch that revenue, and if you're seeing blips, pay really, really close attention to that. and understand them and put those on your sales guys and your marketing teams and even some of your director or your operational team to understand what's causing those. Is it a drought? Is it if you're in certain type of water products? Is it a bad stormy season if you're in car products? But track it and understand it so you get a comfort level. You're never going to be able to control it, but at least you get a comfort level of where these blips are coming from, and you can manage your way through them. The other part I would say is your culture becomes critically important when you got a shift. It galvanizes or destroys your company when you have a crisis or some type of major shift. And we all think we're doing, and we are doing really well with our culture and working with our team, and we have loyalty, and we have, as leaders, we have a lot of affinity for our people, and we feel they have affinity for us. But the telling sign is when these crises show up, what happens? And no matter what happens, even if it starts to disintegrate or separate, you have the opportunity to step in and pull it all back together and re-galvanize that team. Because we all just love that challenge. It can be very, very painful, but we all just love to rally behind a cause. So that's a great opportunity. And if you've got a good culture gets even better. If you've got an okay culture, you're going to be okay. If you've got a really, if you're not paying much attention to it, then it can be very taxing on you and your company. But you'll come out the other side a stronger team. And I enjoy that. I really enjoy that. Been through 4 of them, major ones in my lifetime. And we've always come through stronger, than we were entering into that kind of a crisis. It's really another really good question, Dawn.
Well, one of the things I observed in one of the big pivots that you did is not only did you have the conversations with the clients, which were challenging in some ways, getting on the same page, but you also really took care of your team. And in the conversations with the clients, you ensured work for the team, but you also made sure they had opportunities to be in a good place and to continue to work as the changes were happening. And I think that speaks to you talking about integrity also. So you talked about the bottom line, but you also took care of people, and which ultimately helped the business. But I think that also is part of who you are and the integrity you bring to your company on the people side. So I just have to say, I really respect that and think it's pretty incredible. And you're a great example of how to navigate those things while also, doing your best to make sure everyone's taken care of.
I think that's it's leadership is a responsibility, right? It's when I kind of took on this role early on, I started the company from scratch, and then the second one I had partners in. I have partners in both businesses, frankly, but I've always had the role of CEO or president or something like that. So I've always enjoyed that role. I've enjoyed the revenue. I enjoyed the personal income, and then I'm like, there's stuff to do here. Not only just like a lot of small businesses, do the work yourself, which we all do. And then you start hiring people, and you move to a point where you can leverage this work, these projects or these decisions onto your team. And that has to be done very consciously, by the way. It's, a different point is, so many people say, I want to be an owner, not an operator. Well, you have to migrate yourself there. This isn't a light switch kind of a thing. You're not just going to show up one day. And if you do, it's good possibility your business is going to fail because your team's not ready for it. You'll know you're an owner when your team won't let you operate anymore. And that's kind of what's happened to me over the years. They just said, Don, don't get involved, please. I'm like, okay,
We're good. Leave us alone. You
yeah, we're
told us
good.
what we need to do.
So I think with leadership comes the responsibility for the numbers, especially if you're in a C level somewhere, and we made a conscious decision to build a war chest, and that's usually 6 months of profit or 12 months of profit. And people, small businesses hate to hear that. I'm running a cash business and it's coming in, going out so fast. Well, if you can't run without 6 months, better a year of no profit, then you're running a different type of business than you could be running. You're basically kind of running out of you're running with scarcity in mind to try to manage that business, as opposed to building the business, because if it dips 1 or 2 months, you're okay, you'll be fine. So you have a responsibility, the fiscal responsibility, the metrics and optics, you have to look at that, bank some money, and then when the crisis is hit, I so appreciate your comment, because we could have cut our loss and run and saved a ton of money for this company. And that's where you get to show up from a place of integrity and your values and your beliefs. And you get to say things like, we're going to fly your whole family to a different part of the world, and it's all on us. Don't worry about it. And you get to really get emotional about that, because it changes people's lives. And I've had so many people come to me and just say, and this goes back even like 7 years ago, when we did some things that these people say, I'm a different person, I have a different family, and I have a different trajectory with my kids and my family now than I ever would have had if I never met you.
Wow.
So yeah, so that changes, but you don't get those opportunities, because you took a job. You get those opportunities because you do the work. You build the optics, you measure them, you bank the money when it's easier to go, spend a little bit more, and be responsible. And when you get there, you get these things show up. and and given a different, kind of P&L and literally cash in the bank, we wouldn't have been able to do that. And 6 figures of spending, straight out of the cash account, is an opportunity. I don't think it's a cost. It's an opportunity for us to continue to galvanize our team, and let our clients know who we are, because that guy's still, and that gal's still with us, no matter, they're just working out of a different location nowadays. And again, the most rewarding part is that these individuals get to kind of restart where they couldn't have done it without us. Possibly a different way, but not without literally missing only a week of work. So
yeah, it's pretty
so,
amazing.
no, thank you.
Yeah. I think, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it is one of the largest blessings I've ever had in business. Often, there's extremes. There's just the numbers guys, and then there's just the people who are just emotional about it and don't make the company into something that can affect a lot of people. And then it's kind of pendulum. When you're in that tension in the middle, that's the sweet spot where you get to really show up as the person and the leader you want to be, and you built the systems around you to allow you to do these kind of things, and that's a blessing. That is a truly a blessing. And it's from I do the work, but I lean on people like you for counsel.
Always happy to be there.
I got 16 CEOs I talk to every 100 days. I've got a lot of people I'm leaning on,
Yeah.
to get there. But it is such a blessing that I get to be involved with that. So
I think you just brought up a really good point where it's it's important to have people to lean on. I think that's the easiest way to say it. And different people will bring different things and different perspectives and different ideas, but also just when those challenging times come up, it's good to have someone to talk it through with, whether or not they are giving you advice, so to speak. But yeah, I think that's really important to have those people in our lives and to have also those people who will just maybe call you on your stuff. And
mhm.
I say maybe who will, but also who care and want to see your success. And yeah, I feel grateful for those people in my life, including you. And you were instrumental in, some particular parts of my business and as I was selling it and continue to be. So I just think that's a really good point that we're not doing it on our own, so to speak, even if we're the leaders of a company.
It's a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice to engage, and there's level, like you say, there's levels of engagement. There's clearly, people that you call on to give you advice. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sometimes it's paid through a consultant, sometimes it's a mentor or somebody, and I think that's really valuable. But I think people often miss the opportunity just to talk out an idea out loud with
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is not fiscally tied to your business. And
Yes.
one of the things I've learned over the last probably 10 years, 15 years of my life now is I surround myself with, some of them are peers, they're CEOs, some of them are just, great friends like you are. And when you get this out of your head, you can journal on it, and that's great, but you're still kind of talking to yourself. I'm a big fan of journaling and answering these questions, but
Yeah.
try saying it to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and try talking it through, whether they're going to be an expert in your field, or they're a high performance whatever business person. Doesn't matter, just talk it out loud, and see what kind of response you get. um and I think it's great you said it, because now it becomes real, because it's out of your head, it's in the real world, and it's out there, and then you get to get the feedback, etc. But I think that's so important, and it's been a big part of my success. Is I have weekly calls. I probably have about 6 hours a week. Every week I talk with people,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not a this is besides my business, right? And you say, well, how do you get all that time? Well, I delegate my business to I've moved from operator to owner mostly. I'm still in there, but I have plenty of time to do these things. And I do. I bring in almost 7 hours a week, where I just talk to people about what I'm doing, whether they're going to call me on it or not. I just get it out there and express it, and then it becomes almost accountability for myself that I want to do it because I said it.
Yes. Yeah. Back to the integrity. Doing what you say you're going to do, you put it out in the world, say it to someone you trust, and
Yes.
check in again.
Yeah.
And did you do it or didn't you do it? Or where are the
Yeah.
challenges and what's next? So I love that. I want to touch on something else you said, because I think this is something I certainly forget about,
Mhm.
is you never know who you're going to impact in your business. And I just had a recent experience with this. I had a staff member who moved. And so he moved away, came back, and I don't have a position for him right now, but he's applied for a position somewhere else. And he asked if I could be his reference. I was like, absolutely. And then the email back said, Thank you for everything you've done for me. You've had an impact on my life. And I had no idea at all. So I think even if we're not getting the direct information from people all the time, like in the moment or while they're with us in the company, you just never know. And that one really surprised me. I had no idea. So I think in having the humanity aspect of the business while still running it well is integral, and having that integrity. And this was someone I had to have several conversations with about a variety of things. And it was actually quite challenging. So I had no idea. And I think that's interesting, right?
Yeah,
People down the road say something.
and I think it comes back to it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
If you want that promotion, if you want that leadership position in the company, or you want to do that, then you bring your standards, bring your values, bring your integrity. don't do this don't do this in a kind of a vacuum. Do it with who you are. And you're so right, especially when you start talking and managing several teams or several people. It doesn't have to be 100. It can be a team of 5. And I've had that too, where people just come back to you and say, "This meant so much to me." I go, "I didn't even think you heard me."
Yeah, exactly.
I was hitting you on the head. I didn't think you even heard. He goes, "Oh, I went to this new company and made such a difference." I'm like, "Great." And and I think it comes back to, like you say, you don't know, but as long as you're true to, what you think that person needs, and you're doing it out of intentionality to help them get better, you're doing them a favor. You're doing your business a favor, and you're doing yourself a favor. And I think that's really important lessons. The worst thing you can do, and I hold up my hand as one of the violators, is keep people in a role, overpay them, and not let them know the value they're contributing.
Yeah.
They get their whole sense of value gets all distorted. Um, and there's always the conversation of, my value is this, and I see it this way, and they see it this way, and that's okay. And it either works out or doesn't. Part ways, and they'll find out from somebody else that, and might find themselves, in a good situation. But I think that really is again part of our responsibility to help people understand when they're creating that value, how they're doing that, and is it measurable? And then if it's measurable and you can see it, then it's true, that's there. So I agree with you. It's really kind of surprising, especially when it comes to more subjective parts of a person's development in a managerial role. But it's real.
Yes, it is.
It certainly is real.
Yeah. You never know.
No, you don't.
Never know. Any last words of wisdom that you would like to share? Any other
That's a good one. I guess
put you on the spot?
yeah. Um, Without reiterating it too much, I think good leadership and leaders can be really, really good just because they're charismatic, or they love people and they get the most out of the people, or they're good with numbers and they drive the decisions with numbers. But I think leaders get to be great when they really take on the work of understanding your own personality and your own blind spots, and you become open to coaching and listening to what those blind spots are, and then do the work to eradicate them, make those blind spots as small as possible. Sometimes they never go away, but if you do the work, you have a great opportunity to be just a really impactful leader. And I think that's where a lot of us kind of, that's good enough. We don't feel it's good enough. We think we're great, everything's great, but really you're just doing good enough. If you go to work and if you kind of journal every week and find out what's working, what's not working, and yes, use the numbers to drive your business, you have the opportunity to just make a tremendous impact to yourself, to all the people in your company, and even the industry. We have clients now that said, you could be anywhere in the world, we're going to work with you. And I'm just like, okay. And that's not because of what Don did. It's because of what the culture and the employees and the value that they have delivered to these clients over time. And I think that's from doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd leave you with just kind of, hey, buckle down, write it down, use the numbers, use the metrics, get scorecards, get dashboards, do all these things, get them in place. If you do the work, you will see, I think, a tremendous growth in your own personal development, your leadership development, and your business development. And the nice thing is, probably your P&L, and more importantly, your profit's going to go way up. So
yes.
Why not put more money?
Which is also a bonus.
It's a nice bonus, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to kind of share some of my thoughts. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate you and your wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And thank you for sharing your thoughts.
You're so welcome. You're so very welcome. See you on our next call.
You bet. Take care.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you for joining this episode of Empowerment TV and the Empowerment Podcast. Head on over to donpayne.com, sign up for email updates. I share more over there, and share this video with someone who might like it or the podcast. And remember, keep believing in yourself and keep believing in your dreams. You have everything it takes to make them all happen. I'll see you next time.